Today we're going to take a look at the 2021 Honda CBR650R. We'll talk about where this 650cc sport bike fits into Honda's current motorcycle lineup, and we'll also go over some of its specs and features. Plus, we'll go over what's changed recently, start it up for you so you can hear what it sounds like, and more. But first, if you guys find any info in this video helpful, please take a second and hit the like button. Liking the video and commenting below really helps grow this channel with YouTube's algorithm, and I really appreciate the help. Now, where does the CBR650R fit into Honda's current CBR lineup? First up, we have the CBR650R coming in at $96.99, and then right above it, we have to jump into the Super Sport lineup with the CBR600RR that starts at $11,899. But if you want to compare apples to apples, the CBR650R comes standard with ABS, and to get ABS on the 600RR, your price jumps up to $12,899. Then you have the other two Super Sport models, the CBR1000RR and RRR models that range from $16,499 all the way up to $28,500. Next up are the models below it. You have the CBR500R at $69.99, and then the CBR300R that starts at $47.99. Also, if you're not just into the CBR models and are open to the naked CB models, you have the CB300R at $49.49 and the CB500F at $64.99, followed up by the bike we're looking at today's naked brother, the CB650R at $91.99, and then the Mac Daddy CB1000R Black Edition at $12,999. I want to take a quick second and say thank you to Southern Honda Power Sports for opening their doors to me and allowing me to come pick through their inventory for these videos. They are a massive Honda Power Sports dealer here in Chattanooga, Tennessee, with tons of inventory from new Hondas to used Harleys and everything in between that they sell to people from all over the USA. So check out the link in the description below and head over to their website to see if they can save you some money on your next toy. And now that we've got that out of the way, let's jump into a little more info on the CBR650R. If you watched my CB650R video, then you probably know where I'm going with this next part. Options. Do you have any options with this bike? Maybe different colors or having the option of buying it with or without ABS?
Nope.
With this bike, you only have one color option here in the USA, and it's called Matte Black Metallic, while other spots around the world get this and Candy Chromosphere Red as well. But at least it's not as bad as the CB650R, where we only get one color and the rest of the world gets four colors, but still. And then, just like the CB650R, the CBR650R comes standard with ABS, Honda's anti-lock braking system. And if you're in the market for a new bike, always keep that in mind, as some of the models come standard with it, and then some it's an option that can range anywhere from $200 all the way up to $1,000. Now, let's dive a little deeper into the bike and take a look at the chassis and suspension. The CBR650R has a steel diamond frame that uses pressed swing arm pivot plates and twin elliptical spars with a rigidity balance specifically tuned by being stiffer around the headstock and more flexible in the spar sections to deliver a more balanced handling characteristic with high levels of rider feedback. The move from pressed rather than forged in 2019 was able to help them save 5.2 pounds alone. Then we have new for 2021, 41mm inverted Showa separate function big piston forks that is not only lighter than the old fork setup, but it also brings in some adjustability. You now have compression and rebound damping as well as spring preload adjustability, and it brings in 4.25 inches of travel, while out back you have a single Showa shock with preload adjustability and 5.04 inches of travel. And next up, we'll jump into the brakes, and up front you have 4-piston radial mounted brake calipers that work on 310mm floating rotors and are paired with a single piston rear caliper and 240mm rotor. And like we mentioned earlier, you do have Honda's 2-channel anti-lock braking system that comes standard. Those brakes help stop the 17-inch aluminum wheels that are 0.97 and 1.2 pounds lighter than the previous CBR650 wheels, and they have your typical sport bike size tires using a 120/70 in the front and a 180/55 in the rear. And now let's jump into the engine and drivetrain. It has a 649cc liquid-cooled 30-degree dual overhead cam 16-valve 4-cylinder engine, and it's mated up to a 6-speed transmission with a slipper clutch. This 67 by 46 millimeter bore and stroke engine with 11:6:1 compression ratio is pumping out 94 horsepower at 12,000 RPMs and 47 foot-pounds of torque at 9,500 RPMs, and you'll find these same numbers on the CB650R too. It's one of the few occasions where Honda hasn't detuned the naked sibling. It is slightly less than the 600RR, but that's yet another reminder: the engine size does not determine horsepower. And also, if you'd like more detailed information on this engine's internals, I'll throw a link in the description below over to HondaProKevin.com, where I dive deeper into what Honda changed with the ECU remap, new cam lobes, and more. And now when it comes to maintaining this engine, thankfully it won't break the bank. Your first service is at 600 miles, which is the standard for Honda unless you're buying a Goldwing, and then you get to wait until 4,000 miles. And as you can see here, the maintenance schedule is pretty relaxed, with recommended oil change intervals every 8,000 miles and valve inspections every 24,000 miles. And next up, we'll jump around the bike and touch on a few different things. Things like changes in the LED display that make the LCD screen easier to read now, so you can keep an eye on the digital speedometer, tachometer, plus a clock, odometer, trip meter, real-time and average fuel consumption, and of course your dummy lights too. This is also where you can see your adjustments in Honda's selectable torque control system called HSTC. The system adjusts engine power to optimize torque at the rear wheel, reducing rear wheel slip when you're on the ragged edge, and thankfully you can turn it off completely if you're in the mood to play a little. And now we'll touch on a few more numbers around the bike before we start it up. You have a curb weight of 456 pounds, and that means if you want to go naked, you're only saving 11 pounds on the CB650R over this CBR650R. You also have a 31.9-inch seat height on this model and the same 4.1-gallon fuel tank, and with Honda's rating of 48 miles per gallon, that puts your range just under 200 miles before you're walking. Now, let's start it up, and then we'll come back for a few more things. And that's the 2021 Honda CBR650R. What do you guys think about it? And what do you think Honda needs to change next? Also, what do you guys think about the $96.99 price point on this bike? But that's a wrap for this one. Thanks again for all the support, guys. I really appreciate it, and we'll see you in the next one.